And you mentioned, the shocked that he is from America. He has roots in Chicago, but also roots in Peru and Italy. How's this going to help? And I think that kind of played into the decision a little bit.
I suspect that, one of the things that made him a strong candidate for the Cardinals who were voting is that as much as, sure, he's from the United States, from Chicago, he went to Villanova, but he has spent most of the last 40 years outside the United States. And so after he was ordained in the early 80s, he went as a missionary to Peru. He was a pastor or a teacher, an administrator, had a lot of hats over his time there. He then went to Rome, was the head of the Augustinian order. He came back to Peru and was a bishop, and went back to Rome to be the head of the dicastery for bishops. And so he has spent, I think it's, yeah, almost a little over 40 years outside the United States, obviously with some visits in time, but no significant time here. And so, as much as, yes, he's from the United States, I don't think people think of him or associate him with the US in the same way that they do some of the other names that were thrown around in previous weeks, like Cardinal Tobin or Cardinal Burke, or even in past conclaves like Cardinal O'Malley. And so I think that that's one of the things that probably made electing an American as Pope more palatable to a lot of the cardinals.
Stephen, hours ago, we saw that white smoke signaling a new pope, and then we saw Pope Leo XIV take the balcony from St. Peter's Square, and it was just unbelievable to see that moment, a historic moment. He appeared comfortable, he appeared confident. What did you notice?
The thing that struck me is really what you just said. He looked really happy, and he looked very calm and in control, and not sort of prideful or arrogant or any of those kinds of things. But he seemed like he was at peace with the role in a particular way. And one of the traditions that people talk about with a conclave is, once you're elected, first they ask you, do you accept? And then assuming you do, they ask you your name and you give your name. And then there's a period where they sort of, they can greet all of the cardinals and that. But then there's this side chapel off the Sistine Chapel that's commonly called like the Room of Tears. And the idea is that often that's the room where they change into the white cassock, the outfit of the Pope. And they get they pick a cross and all sorts of things. And many people have said that's the room, that's the moment where the weight of the papacy just kind of hits people all of a sudden. And it's not the room of tears of joy. It's often the room of tears of sort of concern and even terror, I think, in some cases. And so, one of the reasons there's a period of time between when you see the white smoke and when the new pope comes out is, beyond talking with the other cardinals and greeting them, there is a period where they sort of they pray, they reflect on this, new profound weight that's on their shoulders. And I think really one of the things that struck me when he came out is he seemed actually very at peace. And so I'll be curious to see, how his personality and how that kind of aspect of his character shapes him as a pope in the months and years to come.
Absolutely. And you mentioned his personality. I've seen he's described as very approachable, very humble, but also, he has managerial experience, that global experience, and really a missionary heart. What do you think, though, the challenges are going to be ahead for him?
That's a good question. I think one of the ways that we often think about a conclave is as a referendum on the previous pope. And what did the cardinals, appreciate and like about the Pope? What are the things they maybe want to be a little bit different? Are there ways that they want to make adjustments? And if we're looking at, what we know of Cardinal Prevost, now Leo XIV, the clear ways in which we see him being kind of in continuity with Pope Francis are a strong, commitment to the idea of the synod on synodality, the role of the church as a listening church. We see a strong concern for the environment and ecological challenges. We see a strong concern for the poor and the marginalized. And so we see those as probable aspects of continuity. We have less of a sense of, the ways in which he might be different in terms of personality, in terms of kind of the symbolic acts and style and so forth. He is reputed to be very accessible. Francis had this sort of quality of being very spontaneous. It was often frustrating for his security detail. It was often kind of surprising for journalists the way he would do these, back of the plane press conferences, very off the cuff. And so those are the sorts of things, are those part of Leo the 14th's personality and style? We don't know. And we'll learn in the coming weeks. I think amid all of that, then, some of the challenges, there are tensions among within the church in terms of, there's been some resistance to the synod on synodality. There's been some resistance to, some of Francis's more sort of pastoral ways of engaging with people. Some people like to say that Francis was maybe less clear or more ambiguous about certain positions and teachings in the church. Some of that may be true, some of that may be overblown. But I think there is a question about sort of what his style and what his direction is going to be now that he's the new pope.
Yeah, certainly time will tell. A big job ahead. Thank you so much, Stephen Okey from St. Leo University, for joining us. Very insightful, very exciting to see what is to head. Thank you, Stephen.
Thanks so much.
And now, joining us right now live, we have Bishop Parks in St. Pete joining us on the Stream Center. He's being interviewed right now, and let's take a live listen into that interview that's happening right now in St. Pete.
Good, a very holy man.
Do you know much about him?
I don't actually. I'm going to, like many of the faithful, I'm going to have to learn about Pope Leo XIV. I do know he's from Chicago. He's a member of the Augustinian order and spent most of his priesthood and even time as a bishop in Peru, so in missionary territory, and most recently working at the Vatican in the dicastery for bishops, which is the congregation or the department, for lack of a better saying, that chooses bishops or helps the Pope to choose bishops for around the world.
Is there anything else that you think is important for people to know about this new Pope or about today?
I think that we believe as people of faith that the Holy Spirit has guided the College of Cardinals in choosing Pope Leo XIV. So I just ask the faithful and people around the world to simply be open, to watch what he says, listen to what he says, but also to watch what he does. And he's here to teach us, to lead us in prayer. And the coming days, weeks, months, and years will reveal his vision for the church and where he believes that God is calling the church to go.
Bishop, let's talk about, we were over at Sefner with you over there earlier, and you just left probably about 15 minutes after when the smoke came. Talk about that car ride over from getting we have white smoke, and then all of a sudden we have an American Pope.
So when I was at the blessing this morning in Sefner, I told a few people there that I was on white smoke watch, so waiting for the white smoke to come up. And I was on the Selman Expressway actually when I heard the news on the radio that we had a pope. Habemus Papam, we have a pope, and the white smoke had risen. So I was filled with joy. I was filled with emotion. I have to say, a couple tears shed because of it being such a special and significant moment for the life of the church.
Do you expect any theological departures, or is this person conservative?
I think it's too early to tell the direction that Pope Leo will take the church. The titles of conservative or liberal are ones associated more with politics rather than with the church, because the church is ever ancient, ever new. And so we have to always allow for new possibilities in the church going forward. Good. Thank you all. Thank you very much. So God bless you all.
And you were just listening live to Bishop Parks reacting live from St. Petersburg to the news about Pope Leo XIV. They actually just wrapped up a special mass there in St. Petersburg to celebrate the announcement. Obviously, Brittany, a historic day, the first American.
Not only for our Tampa Bay community, not only for the U.S., but globally, Pope Leo XIV elected a short while ago. Pope Leo XIV is 69 years old. He's the first Augustinian pope, has roots as a missionary in Peru, as well as Chicago, the first American-born pope. And of course, we'll have more coverage on this historic day. News Channel 8 coming up at 4 p.m. We hope to see you there. Thank you so much for joining us on this from the Stream Center for WFLA Now.